Hey guys, all right. So if you have questions on optimizing hormones, gut health, macros, fasting, electrolytes, gut healing, and more, this video is for you. So welcome to my first IG Live. I'm super excited to be here today. I'm hoping that I'm going to get a few of you joining me live, but if not, you can always catch the playback. So for anyone I haven't connected with yet, I'm Danny Conway. I've been in practice almost 15 years, helping women ditch the diet, lose weight, and gain energy. And I do that through a very customized approach of low carb, keto, carnivore, and everything in between. I also specialize in balancing hormones, rebalancing gut health, and really just have a very inside outside approach to fat loss, weight loss, and everything in between. So I see some of you hopping on. I'm super excited that I'm not going to be here by myself today. So I have tons of questions that I took in my stories last week, and I got a few yesterday, and I have a whole list of Q&A, and I'm just going to jump right in. So if you're live, feel free to say hi in the comments. If you are watching this on the playback, you can always feel free to say hello. If you have follow-up questions, I always welcome all questions, so you can comment those or always feel free to DM me as well. So, all right. And I'm just getting used to IG Live also. I'm super used to Facebook Live, truth be told, but just not used to IG. So I'm waving to everyone. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's just jump right into the questions. So I'm trying to lose weight. I get off work late and sometimes barely have time to eat during the day. I'm home around 8 p.m., in bed by 10:30. Am I sabotaging myself eating that late and then going to bed? I eat meat and fat, and I'm mostly carnivore. So, here's the thing. My vote is always eat. If you're hardly eating during the day and you are, working and that sounds like it might be a little bit stressful, always eat. So when you're faced with the time of day that you can eat is right before bed, my vote is always going to be to eat. Is it sabotaging your results? I mean, I think not eating after a stressful day is sabotaging your results more than if you worry about eating at that time. So if you can, try to figure out ways to have a snack during the day. And make time in your schedule to eat. That would be super important. The other thing that I would say is that make sure that on your non-work days, if those are the weekends or you get days off during the week, that you do have a regular eating schedule on those days, if at all possible. So hopefully that helps. Hey Bella, hi Donna, hi Nick, great to see you all. Lulu, thank you so much for hopping on. All right, so next question. I'm currently OMAD, sometimes 2MAD. I also experience acid reflux, especially on my OMAD days. Is there anything I can do? So just, if anyone doesn't know what OMAD is, it means 1 meal a day. And this is a common question that I hear a lot. So when we eat 1 meal a day, excuse me, when we eat 1 meal a day, a lot of times we're trying to get all of our food in that one meal that day. And that can cause some digestive issues if your digestion is not optimized, if you're still working on gut healing, if there's underlying GI stuff going on. So that's important to realize. So my suggestion for those times or days is that, OMAD, honestly, I'm really honest for anyone that doesn't know me yet, might not be the best option for you. And I know that a lot of people love OMAD and it works for a lot of people, but my opinion, which is unpopular sometimes, is that OMAD is not always the best option. So that being said, smaller meals throughout the day, if you do 2MAD currently and you can do that without having reflux, that is step one. If you're still having reflux with 2MAD, then going to 3 meals a day and potentially smaller meals and adding a snack if you can. Now, I totally get that some of you are like, but eating 4 times a day, that's not carnivore. Okay, carnivore is not defined by fasting and how many meals a day you have, okay? Carnivore is defined by the types of foods that you're eating at said meals or snacks, whether it's 2 meals, 4 meals, 2 meals and a snack, 3 meals and 2 snacks, whatever that is. So, okay, Lulu shares, that's me. I have 2 to 3 meals. I do too. Even on days where I have a longer fast and a shorter eating window, I still have 2 to 3 meals. So there you go. Okay, I see there's a little camera at the bottom with a plus sign. That must mean that somebody wants to join me. I don't even know. I don't even know what these icons mean yet. So, Donna says, me too right now. Awesome. Okay. This is a good one. I love this one. What are good coffee replacements? I don't need the caffeine, but I like to have a warm drink in the morning. I love this question. So first and foremost, a warm drink in the morning, that's, I'm assuming, carnivore. You could do something like warm water and blend into that a spoonful of butter and maybe an egg or egg yolk. That would be amazing. If you do spices, you could add a little bit of cinnamon to that. The egg yolk gives it a natural sweetness. You could do warmed bone broth, so you could actually do bone broth on its own, or you can do that same mixture, blending in butter and an egg yolk as well. So those are some suggestions there. Okay, perfect. I won't click on it because I don't know who's requesting to join the video. So, all right, next question. What are some things that you think might mess up hormones? So, this is general. Sometimes when I take questions, it's hard when I don't have all the context behind the questions. So, that being said, the question again, what are some things that you think might mess up hormones? Well, there's a lot of things that could mess up hormones. Birth control can mess up hormones. If you didn't see my information on birth control, that's still in my stories. It'll be there for another few hours. You can check that out. But that being said, things that we might not think about. Plastic bottles, so drinking out of plastic bottles or anything that could, leach a toxin into the water or whatever liquid you're drinking. Toxic makeup and hair care. So there's actually been studies done that show that women apply over 200 chemicals to their skin, their face, their hair, their skin, their body, when they get ready before leaving the house in the morning. That can have a terribly negative effect on hormones, estrogen, that kind of thing. Shampoos, of course, those are all things, to name a few, that are kind of outside the box of hormone disruptors, if you will. Okay, next question. Can you talk about bloating? Okay, anyone ever experienced bloating or even on carnivore? Drop me a yes in the comments. All right, I'm just gonna do some of these waves. I think this is a cool feature. Okay, I can wave at you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, can you talk about bloating? I feel like I'm desperate. First of all, I've totally been there. I totally get it. That being said, I've been carnivore for 6 months. I had a little relief when I first started, but I feel like I've tried everything. Let's see. She also says enzymes, HCl, so digestive enzymes. HCl means hydrochloric acid. Ox bile, on and off probiotics help. Okay, so I'm so glad I'm not the only one, as well as this person that sent in the question that's experienced bloating before. So that being said, there's a lot of things that can cause bloating, and there's a lot of not so obvious things that can cause bloating. So the obvious things might be dairy, eggs, but the not so obvious things might be things like food sensitivities to foods that we consider healthy. You can still have a sensitivity to beef. You can still have a sensitivity to chicken, to meats that are good. I don't like to use the words good and bad, but basically animal-based foods that we would consider healthy on a carnivore diet. So with that being said, sometimes it's not always easy to identify that. That's when some of the testing that I do, the functional testing, comes in really handy that I do in my practice. But just in general, some other causes, aside from low stomach acid, aside from poor digestive enzyme function, so hormone imbalances. So there's a huge gut hormone connection. So that can definitely cause bloating. Poor sleep. So this is really a big one, okay? So poor sleep has sort of a cascade effect kind of everywhere on hunger hormones, on our adrenal hormones, which regulate our 24-hour rhythm. And when we have poor sleep, we might notice when you wake up in the morning that you're excessively hungry. That, of course, is the effect on hunger hormones, leptin, ghrelin, and there's a few others. But the other thing about sleep is that some of you may have noticed that if you ever have a poor night's sleep and you wake up in the morning, aside from being really hungry, you might notice like you feel your stomach doesn't feel as good. You might notice gurgles. You might notice bloating. So again, poor sleep has a huge connection to bloating. Other underlying factors could be gut pathogens, bacterial imbalance, specifically something called an imbalance of something called opportunistic bacteria. So those would be more of like what we've labeled as like the bad bacteria, where the bad outweighs the good. So these are more like underlying root causes that if you feel like you've done everything, that it might be worth investigating. So you can investigate this via stool testing. One of the most common questions I get in my practice is like, can I get my doctor to run the test? Kind of. You might be able to. That's kind of like asking a doctor if the doctor will run an expanded thyroid test. What's going to happen? Sometimes they might, and other times they might have, no idea why you would ever want to do that. So specifically stool testing, I use a really good one with my clients. We often find things that are lingering, underlying pathogens and such that can be causing a lot of problems. So there's some more on underlying factors of bloating. And I think I saw a couple questions. If you guys have any questions as I'm going, please feel free to put those in the comments. Okay, please talk more, speaking of digestive issues, please talk more about treatment for SIBO, yeast, and parasites. So SIBO means small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Yeast, candida, fungus, yeast, those are kind of in the same category. Parasites, also kind of underlying pathogen type issues. So as far as like treatment for that stuff, it's really going to depend on what you actually have. So with SIBO, there's two different types of SIBO. With yeast and with parasites, there's different types of pathogens, and those different types of pathogens can dictate which herbs and which rebalancing protocols are used to best treat, or I don't really like to use treat, but rebalance the gut from the inside out. Yes, supplements and herbs for these pathogens are typically plant-based supplements, but they're herbs and they're very potent forms of the herbs. So you're usually taking it in a capsule. You're not, oregano oil is popular, olive leaf is popular, but you're not having, 3 pounds of oregano every day. You're having a very concentrated amount in an oil format that's usually in a capsule. So most people that even, that are on carnivore are still comfortable taking these types of supplements for healing-based protocols. The other thing is that it's not long-term. Like none of these protocols should ever be long-term. They should be taken for a period of time with a specific goal in mind. And then aside from rebalancing and eliminating the pathogens, the goal should be, getting off of them eventually as well. The other thing about treating these, so to speak, we'll just use that word, or healing from these, is that the protocols often need to be cycled in a way. Sometimes the herbs need to be cycled depending on how intense the imbalance is. The reason is because these bugs are very, very smart, and they have life cycles, number one, and they can also adapt to certain herbs. So that's all things to keep in mind, when you're rebalancing this stuff. Okay. Oregano oil is the worst thing I've ever tasted. It's pretty potent. It will make you not want to eat it, that's for sure. That's why capsule form works really good. Okay. What is your opinion on electrolytes when fasting? So this is a really great question. There's lots of different opinions on this. I love this question. I think that it can go either way. So first and foremost, I want to say I'm team electrolytes because I feel best when I use electrolytes. However, that being said, I do think we need to be considerate of how much we're using electrolytes when we're fasting. So, that being said, I do think that it's okay to use electrolytes when fasting. The caveat there is that I do think that you should always use unsweetened electrolytes when fasting. So, my go tos are 40,000 volts. Well, it's over there. 40,000 volts by Trace Minerals, the unflavored electrolytes by LMNT or Elemental Labs, and the snake juice powder. I buy the snake juice powder. I don't make my own. I make a lot of things. Electrolytes isn't one of them. So, with that being said, I also think that you don't want to overuse electrolytes when fasting. So, what do I mean by that? Okay, so here's the thing. Sometimes symptoms of hunger and symptoms of low electrolytes can mirror each other and be very, very similar. Lightheaded, fatigue, tired, sometimes nausea, feeling like low blood sugar. So those symptoms of hunger and low electrolytes can mirror each other. Hunger will always persist even if you use electrolytes and what you are feeling is not actually low electrolytes. So I don't have a problem if somebody uses a little bit of unsweetened electrolytes, or if you notice you think you get hungry but you're not sure if it's low electrolytes or hunger, and you go for the electrolytes first to experiment and see if that helps to eliminate the symptoms that you're feeling. That's totally fine in my opinion. However, hunger will always persist. So if you are truly physically hungry and you have the electrolytes and then the symptoms persist after that, then you should definitely eat. And I know that there's a lot of other factors that could go along with that question. So I'm just going to leave it there. If you have follow-up questions for that, please feel free to let me know. Okay, this person, somebody wrote in and said, thanks for all the great information. You're so welcome. I so appreciate that. Okay, next question. When we finally figure out our gut health, is that when we will start losing fat? So let me say that again. When we finally figure out our gut health, is that when we'll start losing fat? So I think this is a great question. And sometimes individuals, we're all individual. There's no one size fits all. I believe that I've never believed in a one size fits all approach. And so that being said, even on carnivore, even on keto, even on low carb, whatever version of, this way of eating that you're doing, definitely, no two versions of keto might look the same, two people, etc. You guys get my drift. So that being said, some people need to rebalance their gut health and do a lot of gut healing and hormone balancing before they will start losing fat. Other people might, start on this way of eating at wherever you are in the spectrum of low carb to carnivore and start losing fat while you're healing your gut. So there's no, it kind of depends. There's no black and white here in terms of this answer. What we often lose sight of is that we do need to, weight loss happens as a byproduct of the body being healthy and in balance. And by weight loss, I mean weight loss or fat loss. They're different. So just keep that in mind. If you're not losing right away, there's a lot of factors there. Measuring body composition, measuring your clothes, not worrying so much about the scale, all of that stuff. So, okay. Next question here, and then I saw some of you guys posted some questions. I will come and answer those. What about allergies? Mine were really bad this spring. Any advice? So I think I love this question. I think this is a great question. We don't really talk about allergies a lot, but allergies have everything to do with digestion and immunity. even environmental allergies. So not only food sensitivities, but also environmental. Pet allergies fall into this category as well. In fact, I had a client years ago who had pet allergies for years, cats and dogs. And we fixed her gut. Long story short, we fixed her gut and she actually eliminated her pet allergies. So, I mean, that was, pretty amazing. Okay. So as far as allergies go, again, something that's rooted in digestion. So what do we need to do? Heal the gut, make sure that we're reducing inflammation, figuring out root cause. If you're doing the gut healing stuff for, a longer period of time and you're not feeling like you're getting where you want to go or to where you want to be, or things like allergies persist. Sometimes that can be deep-rooted stuff, pathogens, stuff like that. So that's definitely a consideration for allergies. Again, both food allergies or food sensitivities and environmental allergies. So there's also a difference between food allergies like anaphylactic allergies and food sensitivities. So when I say everything I'm talking about here is food sensitivities. Somebody may or may not ever be able to get rid of an anaphylactic allergy. So, all right, let's see. First question I see here, having trouble with I'm guessing heartburn on carnivore. Any tips? Yes, I did actually answer this question earlier. So number one, I partly answer this question. So number one is making sure that you're not always doing like on an OMAD schedule and you're having maybe smaller meals throughout the day, maybe less fat, less protein at a time. That can be helpful with reducing heartburn. Some benefit from, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and water about 20 minutes before meals. Sometimes, the thing about heartburn is that a lot of times it's actually caused by not enough HCl, hydrochloric acid, versus too much. So a lot of times people do things to try to reduce their acid production, but actually their acid production is already low, and that's what's actually causing the heartburn. So playing around with that. HCl, hydrochloric acid, you can supplement with that plus digestive enzymes. That's another thing you can try. And, there's other bacteria and pathogens that can cause acid reflux and indigestion as well, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So you can catch the playback and watch and hear more about that. Thank you, Lulu, so much. Okay, let me go back to some of these questions. Newly carnivore here, having trouble with giving up dairy. Any tips to help that? So welcome, Melissa, to Carnivore. So glad to see that you're sharing your journey here on Instagram. All right, so I'm guessing that if you're trying to give up dairy that you might have trouble with dairy. And the reason I say that is because for someone who's new to carnivore, I don't necessarily suggest that they give up dairy right away if they don't have to. So assuming that there are issues with dairy, it causes bloating, it causes, maybe pooping problems, whatever they are, skin breakouts, acne, things like that, and I would make sure that you're eating enough animal protein, so meat and fat. So those things can help you with dairy cravings. They can help you with any cravings. But definitely getting more meat on a daily basis and at your meals can help with any cravings and dairy cravings. If you're, another option would be to try to slowly reduce the amount of dairy. Some people are cold turkey, they have to go cold turkey, and others can reduce it gradually. So hopefully that helps. All right, tips on reverse dieting without gaining weight. So, you guys, the dog is snoring behind me. I don't know if you can see him. Oh, I was going to try and show him to you. He's snoring behind me. So hopefully you can't hear that. Anyways, tips on reverse dieting without gaining weight. Okay, so I don't really believe, real talk. I don't really believe in cutting and bulking, quite frankly. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I just don't believe in cutting and bulking. I think that that perpetuates cycles of yo-yo dieting and restrictive eating. So unpopular opinion, probably. But as far as like macros, which was a question, I maybe haven't gotten to that question yet. Where was the macro question? Hold on, guys, because this would be a good time to answer it. Oh, your opinion on eating is it's similar. Your opinion on eating until stuffed versus carnivore macros or meat macros. So this is another one of my favorite questions. So the bottom line is you should do what works for you. And definitely experiment. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with both. There's some that do really well eating until stuffed. There's others that come from a restrictive dieting background, and that getting to the point of eating until stuffed has to be it works best to be like on a gradual basis. So maybe you start with, let's say you're coming from a 1,000 to 1,200 calorie restrictive dieting background. That might mean eating, 1.5 times the amount that you're eating currently. And then kind of graduating, if you will, 2 times and then 3 times, and getting to a place where you can eat until you're stuffed. And then you start to notice along the way that things like cravings and hunger and, energy and things start to balance out. As far as macros go, again, I'm not against them. Definitely not. I actually created a macro formula that I use with my clients in my practice a few years back. Or I created the formula a few years back that I still use with my clients. And the reason I created that is because there's a lot of crappy macro formulas out there that, quite frankly, recommend way too little food, way too little calories for active women that want to rebalance their hormones, which was me, based on my story years ago. So that being said, again, I don't believe in the gaining and bulking cycle because I think that perpetuates restrictive dieting too much, or the on again, off again dieting cycle. And I think that you can get results losing body fat, gaining muscle. I've done it myself, other ways. So, and then as far as, as far as my opinion, I think that both work. Macros work, feasting works, or I should say eating until stuffed, because eventually your body will rebalance. One of the things that we talk about in the steak and butter challenge, which I am so honored to be able to be co-coaching in there with Bella and Coach Raymond, and Lulu and Emily and all of the amazing carnivores that we have in there, is that, feasting is a process. And anyways, it all works. You just have to figure out what works for you personally. Okay, let me scroll back down. Donna. How do you know if you have one of those issues, SIBO especially? So I think one thing is that, testing, for sure, testing. Test, don't guess. That's absolutely imperative when you're trying to figure out the underlying pathogen type issues. SIBO can be a separate, is typically a separate test than a regular stool test. And I think just to be honest, I see a lot of people making, assuming they have SIBO because the symptoms might apply, but maybe they haven't tested for it. So that's a common mistake. So it's just important that if you're going to do any type of protocol to rebalance that stuff, that you test and don't guess. Okay, hopefully that helps. Lulu says, I had it during a parasite cleanse. Oh yeah, must be the oregano that we were talking about. I had it during a parasite cleanse. It was so strong with the capsules. Yes. Oh, did you actually take liquid? I don't know if you're still here, Lulu. But yeah, so oregano oil is really strong. I definitely recommend capsules. Okay, more questions. Hi, Shelby. I know it's my first solo live. Okay, can I just share with you guys? I was literally sweating 10 minutes before I hopped on here live. I don't know. why I was so nervous. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you the truth. I get less nervous when I've done my TV segments than I do for IG Live. Okay, I just told on myself. There you go. I'm human. What can I say? Melissa says, I have fibromyalgia. What was your question again? Oh, about dairy. So, I mean, if you feel like, dairy can definitely cause inflammation. Does that mean it's going to cause inflammation in every single person? No. Could it be beneficial to remove for at least 30 days? Definitely. So again, I would just increase that amount of meat and then other fats, whether it's animal fats, butter if you tolerate butter. A lot of my clients who don't tolerate dairy still will tolerate butter. There's a very, very low amount of lactose in butter, or ghee, Ghee. You can definitely try that. I know I was trying to show him on the camera, but I'm afraid if I move my phone, I'm going to screw this whole thing up and press the wrong button. So we're not going to do that. What are the symptoms of SIBO? That's a good one. Okay, so severe bloating, especially, so we talked about bloating earlier. A lot of us are familiar with what that terrible feeling of bloating feels like. So sometimes, I have some clients who report that they feel more bloating in their upper stomach, upper area. And then some clients who feel like they feel bloating in their lower area. So it is common that maybe the lower area of bloating can be more of a symptom of SIBO, but just bloating in general can definitely be a symptom. Sugar cravings can be really bad with SIBO, but honestly, this is kind of one of those things where kind of like I talk about with cortisol and hormones, two people can present with the exact same symptoms, but then their cortisol patterns can look really, really different on a test. Oh yeah, there were some hormone questions as well. We'll have to get to those. And so that's why testing is important, because you never want to do the wrong protocol or the wrong herbs, so to speak, to improve digestion for a pathogen that you think might be SIBO, but it's actually H. pylori or something, something like that. So that's definitely something to consider. Okay, so question on hormones. Where's the menopause? There's a menopause question. Okay, somebody says, I feel like I'm in the perimenopause, menopause, entering into the peri and menopause time. Do you suggest hormone testing? So, this answer could go both ways. If you're entering into this stage and you feel like you've got some hormone imbalances going on, yes, definitely suggest hormone testing. If you are going into this stage and you don't have hormone symptoms, and you just want to get a baseline for where your body is at, I don't know how old this person is, but they said peri and meno, so I'm going to guess about in the early, 40 to 45 range. Either way, hormone testing can be really valuable to either see where things actually are or to get a baseline, which is also saying where things actually are, but to get a baseline so that in 6 months or a year, if you notice any changes, or you're just going to continue to test every 6 to 8 months to a year, you know what your body is doing and what it was doing before, what it's doing now, what it's doing as time goes on. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I have a couple more questions here. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. Has this been helpful so far? Please say yes. Drop me a yes in the comments if this has been helpful. While I get a drink. I'm breathing, by the way. I'm not sweating anymore, so all is good over here. Now we feel like we could just sit here forever, but I know you guys all have a life and I'm not going to keep you here all day. So, okay, just a couple more questions that I have here. What is your opinion on PSMF? So for those that don't know what PSMF is, it means protein sparing modified fast, which is basically a high protein, low fat way of eating. Some people do this for, to jumpstart weight loss. That's usually the reason why people do this. Okay, so here's my opinion. I'm not a fan of PSMF. I'm just not. I feel terrible when I don't eat enough fat. Some recommendations of fat on PSMF are very low, too low as far as I'm concerned. It's very hard to rebalance hormones when you're not eating enough fat. Most of us aren't losing weight because of a hormone imbalance. So trying PSMF and trying to balance hormones at the same time is quite counterproductive as far as I'm concerned. But let's talk about why. So energy has to come from somewhere. Energy is going to come from carbohydrates, or energy is going to come from fat. Okay? Carbohydrates or fat or carbs. If we're not eating either, and you're only eating protein, eventually you're going to end up not feeling as good. So you might be able to do, 1 day of eating higher protein, lower fat, lower, of course, low carbs. But days on end in a row, you're probably going to start noticing you're hungry, your cravings might come back, things like that. So I know that people do it. I know that it can be successful. I know that it works for some. This is just my personal opinion. There you go. So, okay, this is a good question, and probably some that some of you will relate to. What is the best way to order carnivore in a restaurant without sounding like a complete weirdo? So I know this can be challenging because sometimes we might be in a restaurant with multiple people, family, etc. So my one super tip to just keep it really simple is to just order meat. So rather than trying to ask a bunch of questions, I would just say, like, can I please have a ribeye with a side of butter? That's it. Ribeye, side of butter. New York steak, side of butter. Couple burger patties, no bun, side of butter. That is the simplest way to do it. You, of course, can get into questions about asking about what it's cooked in, what it's grilled on, all those things. If you, for example, have celiac or a gluten sensitivity, I work with a lot of celiac clients. Yes, you obviously should ask more questions in terms of what's been on the grill, that kind of thing. But the most simple answer I can give you for that one is just order a piece of meat, chicken, steak, etc., and a side of butter to go with it. So there you go. All right, guys. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this on the playback and you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the comments. If you just want to say hi after watching the playback, please say hi in the comments. And I am excited. I have a few guests that I'm going to be bringing onto my IG Live here. So that will be coming up in the next few weeks. And other than that, I hope everyone has a fantastic day.